Hello, everyone, and welcome back to College Football Corner. Kevin Walsh alongside Jersey Joe Archino. As always, 3 weeks in the books now. Tons of good games, some surprises, some not so surprising things, but FSU Louisville. This was our game of the week. We both agreed that this was going to be the game that produced the fireworks. Fireworks only came from one side. Louisville and Lamar Jackson dominate this game. I mean, how good is this Louisville team?
Well, how foolish do I look picking FSU to win that game last week? But it's one of those things where, look, it's been very clear-cut who the Heisman favorite to this point is. It's Lamar Jackson. His name is written all over this campaign in college football. And I think the biggest thing that you have to like about him that you saw in this game is he's not always going to maybe have his best in the throwing department, but the thing he's always going to be able to resort back to is his athleticism, the way he can just hurt you with his legs, his dynamic ability to just go up there and use his speed. The kid really has all of the tools and all of the intangibles to do whatever he wants to do. And I think that game was a perfect example of what he can do when his throwing game is not at its peak. His running game was able to be there for him, and it took over.
And, of course, Lamar Jackson right now does look like the Heisman favorite. Dalvin Cook was a guy for FSU we thought was really going to be in the running for the Heisman Trophy at the end of the year, and he's been underwhelming, but FSU hasn't been that impressive. They were really close to being upset week one at home. Did we maybe overrate FSU a little bit?
I don't think we overrated them. I mean, when we look at Archino, we look at Jimbo Fisher, two of the best coaches in the country. I think when you look at Jimbo's side, though, when you look at the recruiting numbers, all the big-time players he was able to bring in, they have talent on almost every key position, but it's not easy to just bring in a quarterback and make him just work right away. I think sometimes DeAndre Francois, you're going to see the growing pains there. This was a big-time test for Florida State on the road against a team that has just dominated so far this season. So I think the talent is there. It's just a matter of getting it to grow and mesh together. And that running game for Florida State, it's been a little hit and miss sometimes. I think that's the best way to probably say it.
Now, FSU, Louisville, not the game of the week. Bama, Ole Miss, that was the game of the week, and it was really a tale of two halves. Ole Miss goes up 24-3, and it looks like, oh my word, they're going to do it again. They're going to upset Bama again. Before you know it, it's 48-30 Alabama, and they're winning comfortably. They got 2 fumble return touchdowns and a punt return touchdown, and they just consistently find a way. What'd you take away from this game?
Well, I think the guy that I want to give the credit to right away is Jalen Hurts. Now, you're not going to see him on the stat sheet that much in this game, no touchdown passes, but to me, the X factor for Alabama this year is his arm. When I look at him in his deep ball, it's not something we've seen a lot of Alabama quarterbacks be able to have. Yeah, Jay Coker at times had it. Blake Sims maybe at times had it. But mainly, this is such a new open Alabama offense. Now, his deep ball gives Lane Kiffin so much more flexibility to make different play calls and keep defenses off guard. So I think when you look at Jalen Hurts, he just kind of gives Alabama that added dimension. Obviously, the running game behind him was pretty darn good in this game, but Nick Saban, this is the kind of game that makes him stay up for 32 hours a day, if that's even possible. But when you look at Saban, this is a game where he has to just pull out every stop he has on special teams, on defense, on offense. This is a combined total effort. He's got to throw every resource he has to win this game, and it really did take that. It took every phase. Alabama had to beat them in every phase to win this game, and Ole Miss almost made it a comeback at the end, but you saw that all the phases for Alabama did pay off in the end.
Now, that comeback was driven by Chad Kelly, their quarterback. And when you think about Ole Miss right now, this team is a couple of plays away. You can count them on one hand from not only beating Bama, but also beating FSU week one and probably being the consensus #1 team in the nation. But they've lost both of those games. How do you feel about Ole Miss moving forward?
You know, Ole Miss and their quarterback, Chad Kelly, I love so much that I see from him. I think NFL people love what they see from him. He throws some balls that are just incredible. But I think the biggest thing that has hurt him and has hurt his team as a whole is that consistency level. Sometimes they just haven't had that total package of consistency. Part of it is probably the looming things that are going to happen, the NCAA penalties that will most likely come, because there's been a lot of fishy things happening at that program. As we saw on draft night with the Laramie Tunzel gas mask thing, he's not in the Army, so I don't think that's the reason he was wearing that gas mask.
Most likely not.
So Ole Miss is a program right now where there's a lot of uncertainty there, and I think it's carrying over to the field for them a little bit.
Now, when you go over to Ohio State, Oklahoma, this was a game we both agreed Ohio State had this, and we felt comfortable with that. But to me, it was another showing that Oklahoma will continue to play little brother to the elite teams in the country. And I just felt like this was really the stamp on that statement, that Ohio State is a level above Oklahoma.
I couldn't agree more, and I think the way you put it there is perfect. To me, the questions I'm starting to ask now is J.T. Barrett. I know Lamar Jackson has been phenomenal, but to me, J.T. Barrett is the best quarterback in the nation. I just look at him in the way he can win a football game, no matter how you ask him to. He has such a good ability to throw the football. Efficiency is part of his nature. He has the legs. He has the wheels, consistently gets passes out to his best guys. I just love the way that he plays. He's such a smart player. But Urban Meyer is, of course, the guy who makes everything work. To me, he's still the best coach in college football. And to me, here's the question with Ohio State is, a lot of people didn't think they could win the championship this year because they don't return a lot of starters. And historically, it's very difficult to win the championship when you don't do that. But Urban Meyer's a guy who breaks the mold. We saw him do it when he won the inaugural college football playoff championship. I think this season, he could do it again. I just love the fact that maybe they're not returning a lot of starters, but they return one where it matters most, and that's at quarterback, and that's with J.T. Barrett.
We're giving Urban Meyer tons of credit for the win. Can we please give Bob Stoops a ton of credit for the loss and the continuous losses in big games here? I just think that it might be time Oklahoma makes the change. What do you say?
I agree with you 150%. It's one of those situations where, look, you said it best. They've played fiddle to all the big programs these last 2 seasons, and it's been very easy to see. Clear cut. Just match them up toe-to-toe against the best other top teams, and they haven't gotten it done. They've been severely outplayed, and that tells you where they stand when it comes to these other top programs. If you can't beat them, you're not one of them, and I think that's as easy as you can say it with Oklahoma and with Bob Stoops.
We'll now move on to the other marquee matchup that Week 3 featured, and that was Michigan State traveling to Notre Dame and picking up a huge victory here. A big statement for Michigan State that this team is no joke. We're all talking about Ohio State. We're even talking about Jim Harbaugh over at Michigan. Well, Michigan State's saying, hey, what about us? We're right in this thing.
Yeah, this is one of the ones I didn't see coming. I really thought Notre Dame had this one in the bag, but maybe I didn't give Michigan State enough credit. They had extra week to prepare for this game. And Mark D'Antonio, what can you say about the guy? I really think he's one of those coaches who always has that chip on his shoulder, because we're always talking about the Harbaughs and the Urban Meyers and the Nick Sabans, but we never give credit to this guy, Mark D'Antonio. His program is always consistently winning. Last year, they're the team that beats Ohio State. They get in the playoff. So I think D'Antonio is one of those guys where he's always winning. He's always putting great players out there. Always is bringing teams that are ready to win. And we're not talking about him the same way. So that chip on the shoulder really seems to work.
On the other side of the ball, though, you said for you, J.T. Barrett, best quarterback in the country. Perhaps at the college game. For me, at the next level, I'm really starting to buy all the stock on Deshaun Kaiser. His performance in this game was Heisman level. I don't think they're going to have the record, though, for him to be in the conversation heavily enough. But as this program goes, they're wasting a Heisman-esque year that Kaiser is going to give them. Is it time for change over for Notre Dame?
I'm going to hold off on the change there. I do think that this is a difficult season for them. And the thing you have to remember about Notre Dame, too, is they're also coming into the season with a little bit of controversy, a little bit of things that have happened off the field. And look, I think sometimes when we look at it, we get so caught up in the games are finally here. We're finally have action back here. And we don't look at what happened before the season started. When I look at the incidents off the field with some Notre Dame players, I look at the disciplinary issues that they've had. To me, that has carried over tremendously. I love Kaiser. He's a kid who plays with the right chip on his shoulder, very smart, very athletic. But you can't tell me that Notre Dame doesn't have some issues right now when it comes to their collective football team.
I have to completely agree there. Let's get into these pick'ems. Again, Week 4, tons of great games to watch here. We're going to start with the marquee matchup for the SEC. It's Florida. They're going to Tennessee. Who do you got?
Tennessee's losing soon. I keep on saying, if you follow me on Twitter, at Joe Archino, nice little shout out there, you will see they're going to lose in these next 4 or 5 games. I wouldn't be surprised if they lost twice in the next 4 or 5 games, but that won't be against Florida. I think at home, they will get it done. But Butch Jones is killing me. I keep waiting for a finish from start to end where he gives me the convincibility that he has his program where it needs to be, and I just haven't seen it. They struggle against Ohio. They struggle against Appalachian State. They struggle week 2, and they're down 14 points to Virginia Tech. I don't like this Tennessee team. They have really disappointed me. They disappoint a lot of people who had them ranked very high. The losses are coming soon, but not against Florida.
I love the shameless plug. I don't love Tennessee. Florida, if they get a win here, will enter into a group that only has 2 teams for me right now as teams that I've been impressed with in the SEC so far on a consistent basis. Where I think Tennessee relies a lot on is the run game. Florida so far, not great competition, but has shown that they can really stop a run game. I think Del Rio can get it done in the air for Florida, and I think that they get a big win here that could catapult them into the top 10 probably. Now let's look at LSU Auburn. We both actually went Auburn last week. Probably we should have known that we were going to mess that one up. They're now going to play host to LSU. We did get right a big marquee game for Leonard Fournette, 147 on the ground, 2 touchdowns, threw a defender through the ground. He looked terrific. Does Leonard Fournette continue to roll?
I think Leonard Fournette absolutely does continue to roll, but this is a battle of 2 coaches who really are on the hot seat. Les Miles, based on the start to their season, there's a little bit of he's got to worry a little bit, and Gus Malzahn is just sweating through his seat right now. I look at Auburn's defense, they're very, very good, much improved this season, but the thing I've seen consistently is Auburn's inability offensively to get in rhythm against good defenses. LSU's defense is tremendous. Auburn's offense just doesn't seem to be able to get going when they play against a top defense. To me, that's the reason I'm going with LSU here.
For me, it's been obvious since last year. There's no player in college football I love more than Leonard Fournette. And that carried over my preseason predictions. I thought LSU was a top 4 college football playoff team. When I saw Danny Etling, when I saw him throwing the ball, it gave me a glimmer of hope. If LSU's passing game can just be respectable, just make a team say, oh, maybe they can complete a pass, I think that they can maybe get something going here, and I think they continue to carry momentum behind Fournette and get a win on the road at Auburn. Now, Stanford, UCLA. Stanford so far, best team in the Pac-12, bar none. Christian McCaffrey has been terrific, but they're traveling to UCLA here, who is a team that started off ranked, have been a bit shaky to start, but this could be a big win for UCLA. Who do you think takes it?
Well, I think, obviously, Stanford is one of those programs where the thing that always impresses me most about them is their toughness. Just the way that they have toughness from their offensive line to their special teams, every level of their football team is built on toughness. And, of course, one of the Heisman contenders, Christian McCaffrey, he's as tough as they come. He's built. He does everything you want on the football field. Stanford is a tremendous team. But Josh Rosen is just so good. I love Josh Rosen. If you listened to the show last year, you probably know how much we enjoyed following him. But to me, when I look at him this season, the big test came right away against Texas A&M. He didn't get it done. I don't think he gets it done. Even though he's home, I just love the Stanford team.
I think McCaffrey right now is the most unstoppable player in college football. I agree, Lamar Jackson, J.T. Barrett, those are your 2 Heisman frontrunners, but I think McCaffrey is the most unstoppable force right now in college football. And we both agree Rosen really has the potential to be special, but right now he struggles with turning the ball over. And I think in a game like this against a very good Stanford team, once or twice he's going to turn it over in key spots, and that'll be the difference on the score sheet. I'm going with Stanford. Arkansas, Texas A&M. Now, this is a game that probably when we first thought about it, it wouldn't be that big, but after Arkansas gets a big win over TCU, and Texas A&M is now one of 2 teams, along with Alabama, that have actually impressed me 3 weeks out of 3 weeks in the SEC, this is a good game here. This is a game to keep your eye on. Who do you have?
Yeah, this is a great game. 2 3-0 teams going up against each other. Classic SEC battle that'll be really one in the trenches. But Texas A&M is one of those teams that I really have my eye on them. The way that they've won against UCLA, against Auburn, I think offensively Trevor Knight has played very, very well, a dual-threat quarterback. They really seem to have things figured out, Texas A&M, and they've always been relevant. They've always been very competitive. But there's just something that I've seen from them where the collective toughness that they've shown, they gutted out the win on the road against Auburn. They gutted it out on the road against UCLA. It only gets a little bit easier. Now they're home against Arkansas. I would really keep my eyes on Texas A&M as we move forward, and I have them winning against Arkansas to go to 4-0.
Yeah, I totally agree. For me, Arkansas, week 1, they beat Louisiana Tech by 1 point. And they beat TCU. It's a good victory, but I don't think TCU is all that great. However, you mentioned the quality wins that Texas A&M have. They're home here. I do think that they continue to roll and get another big victory. 2 more games, 2 games that featured ranked opponent versus ranked opponent, so they're big marquee matchups. Wisconsin traveling to Michigan State. Michigan State coming off their biggest win of the season, obviously. Does that momentum carry to a Spartan victory?
Yeah, I think normally when you look at a match like that, it's so hard to not pick Michigan State based on what we saw. And Wisconsin's going to give them a very tough time. 2 very tough physical programs. Wisconsin's already got a win against LSU under their belt, so they're not going to be lacking in confidence. But this is both teams that will be very prepared to play the football game. Mark D'Antonio's team is always prepared. I think they're going to build off that momentum and win again.
Yeah, I like Michigan State here. What I think the difference comes down to is the fact that Wisconsin does not have the offensive firepower to keep up with the Spartans. I think it's as simple as that. Last game here on the slate. Ole Miss, the 1-2 but still ranked team, because when you look at who they've lost to, you got to give them some credit. And then you look at Georgia, who started off pretty impressive with the win against UNC. Week 2 was a bit meh. Then last week they only beat Missouri by 1. How do we feel here?
I'm still not totally settled on Georgia. I think Kirby Smart is going to be really great with this program, but he's kind of getting his foot on the ground still with it. There's still a lot of kinks they're working out. And Chad Kelly, to me, just is so good offensively that he should be able to win this game. I'm going to go with Ole Miss because they've really had some things that haven't gone their way. They've lost games very narrowly. I think they pull it out here.
I was really leaning Ole Miss for the majority of the time, but this team just seems to give away the games you feel like they really should win. And Georgia, although they haven't been impressive consistently, they have Chubb. He's an elite running back here at the collegiate level. And they've got Eason. And I think that this is a quarterback battle where you're kind of going to look at almost the passing of the torch. Chad Kelly, he's a gunslinger, and he can get the job done, but he's obviously in his last year here at Ole Miss. Eason, the freshman, and I think he's going to come into his own here. I think it's a big game for him. I think it's a big game for Georgia. I'm going with Georgia in this one. That's going to wrap it up for us here this week on College Football Corner. Kevin Walsh, Jersey Joe Archino. We'll see you guys next week.